Okay, we're live. Welcome, Chris. Third time already
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you.
Good times, good
Uh,
times.
okay, and you've been well in the past
Yeah,
week.
yep, I have
Okay,
been.
okay. The people that are new, what I usually do is give my opponents the chance for, let's call it a rematch, where they can decide the topic, and I don't get to know what the topic will be up front. So I want to go in as unprepared as possible. And what's going to be the topic? And from here on, you'll be the one conducting the talk.
Okay, the topic is abiogenesis. Tell me how it works.
Abiogenesis.
Yep,
You want me to tell you how that works?
yep.
Um, I'm not a biologist. I think at this point, the person to talk to would be Jackson Wheat, but I know at least a little bit about it. What happened is, as far as we know it, life is just a chemical reaction, and the universe is as we have it. Uh, will have the possibility to create life. And in order to do that, a couple of chemical reactions uh, have to be happening, and that's the creating of amino acids. And there have been several experiments. Um, I think the most famous would be the Urey Miller experiment, that have proven by reconstructing the environment that, as far as we know, is the environment was the environment when life first arose. So, and by recreating that and seeing that the basic blocks for life were constructed, chemical reactions, that at least makes it uh, uh, plausible, and it proves that it can happen. How it exactly happened, that's something we don't know, and we might never know, because we have no means, at least not yet, to know uh, environment that was in place when life arose.
Okay, but surely we know something about the chemical reactions themselves and how they happen.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
and that's
tell me about that.
what has been duplicated in a lab. You get the basic blocks needed, and through further chemical reactions, you get to RNA, and RNA is what creates DNA.
Okay, and
And
tell me how.
you want me as a layman to tell you how?
Something
I
like
don't
that,
think
yeah.
I don't think I'm even close to being qualified to tell you how. As I said, could tell you how, because he's studying it, and he dove in it to find it out. Um, what I could do is, at least Jackson gave me a lot of links, but if I would now going go and read off all those links, it would be a very boring hour. What I can do is what Jackson sent me, and that's a link that covers is, I think, over a couple of decades, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look. But there you can look up
Okay.
what
Let's
we
just go
know,
ahead and
what
let's
we
just
know
go
by
ahead
now.
and change the topic then. Okay. Tell me how knowledge works.
How knowledge works.
Yeah. How do we gain information from our environment?
That also is just chemical reactions that happen in our brain.
I'm not talking about the physical
Uh,
side of like neurochemistry or any of that. I'm asking you, how do we know things from the world?
how do we know things? Well, the best set we have to gain knowledge is the scientific method. I wouldn't know of
Before
any.
that, before that, let bring it all the way back to Descartes. Like, how do I know that this world around me is even real in the first place?
We don't. That's quite easy. But it doesn't matter if it's real or not. If we are living in the matrix, that's fine, because to us, reality is still reality, and it's the only reality we have. So it wouldn't make, at least for
Good,
us, that reality.
good.
And yeah, as I said, is is gained by the scientific method. And if you say what's before, there actually isn't
Wait a minute. Is the scientific method the only method of gaining information?
at the moment, it's our only reliable method to gain information. And there's no before. At one point we described it, and we defined it. That doesn't mean using it before it was described. It's a simple thing. If you were, let's go back to cavemen who couldn't even talk. If one of them was attacked by a bear and killed, that's something that's demonstrable, and the others would have learned from that and would make sure they wouldn't get close to a bear, because now they know what happened. That's at least a crude form of the scientific method, where something is tested, accident or on purpose.
Now, Peter,
Yes.
you told me a second ago about the Urey-Miller experiment. How do you know that experiment? How do you know
How
of
do
it, and how do you know? Yes.
there are a couple of ways to find out. For the layman, you can go to Wikipedia, which has, I think, a very nice explanation of what happened. But
Sure.
people,
Okay, and is that
people.
scientific? Is that scientific method of gaining information, or is that something else?
That's the scientific method.
The scientific method is looking up stuff online.
No.
Yeah, right.
Why would the scientific method be looking up something online?
This
I
is
don't.
exactly what I'm
I
saying.
don't.
It's not. This is another
No.
method by which we gain information.
No. It's a method by which we gain information. It's not a method by which we gain knowledge.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
See, now to me, that's not a difference. That's a difference without a distinction.
You can read something. That doesn't mean that you actually know it. And
Okay. And when you do that, what?
I have a simple way to check that, because we have the Bible. The Bible says that God exists.
No,
That
no, no,
doesn't
leave,
that
leave the Bible out. Leave the
no,
Bible out.
I just want to give an example between
Okay.
knowledge. The Bible says God
As we're
exists.
using these terms, sure.
We can read it until our eyes glaze over, but we will still have no knowledge about whether a God exists. Because that's not how we gain knowledge. So that would be my example for the difference between information. The information would be that there's a book that claims that a God exists. That's my information.
Okay.
The knowledge whether that God actually exists is something I can't get from a book. I couldn't get that from 1,000 books.
Okay,
Because
so
knowledge is demonstrable.
okay, so if we're going to superimpose things from the scientific method on it, the book would be the data, and then the book itself would be
No, the book is just
no,
a claim. There's no data in the book.
no. But according to what you were just saying, where we can read this book, and you say that we know that there is a book that makes this claim, that's data, right?
No, that's not data. That's just a claim. Data is what backs up the claim, and that's something we can't find in the Bible. The Bible is just a bunch of claims, and for which, so far at least,
use something other
we
than
have
the
no data.
Bible, because you're just telling me that the Bible is not true. The Bible is not true. The Bible is not true. Let's
That's
use
not what
something else.
that's not what I said. That's not even close to what I said.
But it is where you're going.
No, I said the Bible is a claim.
Right.
The Bible contains no data that backs up that claim. Because data to back up the claim would be extra biblical.
And because I would say that there is such data, but leave the Bible out of it. Let's
okay,
stick,
but
it wasn't to the world that you think is real.
I could easily say, in the US you have a comic about Donald Duck. The comic makes it clear that there's this duck called Donald, nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And you can read that till your eyes glaze over, and you still will have no evidence that Donald Duck exists. So that would pretty much, to me, be the same. The same could be said for Harry Potter.
Okay,
and
so
Harry
you
Potter
read something
might be a better example, because in Harry Potter, like in the Bible, things are mentioned that actually exist. London exists, for instance.
And now we're getting away from knowledge and information again. Okay, so we have it.
No. It's my way to telling you the difference between knowledge and information.
Please do that.
Information isn't per definition knowledge.
Okay. And the distinction is what?
Knowledge is demonstrable. Information is not demonstrable. If you read about, let's say, the monster of Loch Ness, that doesn't mean that now you know that the monster of Loch Ness exists. Because in order to know, you have to be able to demonstrate that the monster of Loch Ness exists. And so far, I think maybe over centuries, no one has been able to do that. So what we have is information about an alleged monster, but we have no knowledge whether or not that monster exists. We do have knowledge that the lake was checked in several different ways, at one point with sonar sweeping the lake, and no monster or no living organism of that size was found in the lake. So the data that we have point to the fact that there is no monster of Loch Ness. But you don't have to disprove something that hasn't been proven in the first place. So
Okay,
as
so
long as
Peter,
no one comes forward with good data that the monster of Loch Ness exists, there's no reason to disprove it.
okay, and how do you know that there is no monster in Loch Ness?
Because no one
You're
has
taking
been able to demonstrate it. If someone can demonstrate it, it's repeatable.
so you're taking this on someone else's word, yes?
No, I'm not taking this on someone else's word.
So you've been to Loch Ness
Demonstrating
and you have
demonstrating
demonstrated.
some demonstrating something makes the word as such useless, because you can go to the demonstration, to the fact. And it doesn't matter who's presenting that fact. You could demonstrate to me that the monster of Loch Ness exists by taking me to Loch Ness and find a way to actually demonstrate, to show me the monster exists. Point. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what education you had, what status you have in life. The fact that you can demonstrate it is enough, because an argument stands on its own merit and has nothing to do with the person making it.
Correct. But when you tell me that there is no monster in Loch Ness, and you say this just because you've heard a bunch of other people say it, this is not science.
No, it isn't.
Okay, and this is what I'm driving at. You're taking someone else's word.
That's information. That's information. When they swept the lake, that they made a documentary so people could see them actually doing it. So they were demonstrating they swept the lake. And the cameras were there, were rolling. The cameras showed the screens that there was nothing. There are not a lot of fish in the lake. There are not even enough fish in the lake that could even sustain a monster that big. There are no plants in the lake. Not enough to
So how do you
sustain
know
them.
things for which there isn't video evidence?
You don't need video evidence. What you need is a set of facts and data that can be repeated by others. If others can repeat it under the same circumstances, that's when you gain knowledge. A simple example would be crash tests in cars.
A what now?
A crash test in a car.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Your safety, when you're driving in a car, is relying on data that has been obtained by crash tests. So you don't have to have the actual accident that you're going to have at one point in time, but you can at least with crash tests make the car possible that when you do have an accident, your car is the safest environment to be in during that accident, and you have the
How do you know
highest
that
chance of.
accidents happened?
How do you know that accidents happened?
Yes.
Have you heard of junkyards? Have you heard
Okay,
of
you heard of things. Okay.
you've
And
never
do you have a working theory on how you know something based on the word of others?
I can tell you I've actually seen an accident happen with my own eyes. I've had in where I lived before, a couple of the street where I
But those accidents
lived.
that you saw were not the only reason, the only accidents that ever happened. The
No, they
accidents you
don't have
saw
to.
aren't the reason that they did crash tests, correct?
They're they're part of the reason. The fact that we still have accidents is a good reason. Every time a new car is developed, if we wouldn't have accidents, there wouldn't be no need to do a crash test anymore. So I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. You can
Because
pretend.
I'm getting at the stuff that is not repeatable. Events in the past that you did not observe, how do you know that they happened?
Have you ever watched CSI?
Yes. What does CSI have to do with anything? Explain, please.
All they ever do is explain things that happened in the past and that are not repeatable.
So you take it on CSI's word that these things happen.
No, it's not CSI's word. I'm giving you an example that.
But it is CSI's word, and this is my point. You take the word.
I'm giving you an example where it is, for you at least, easy to check that human beings investigate things of the past that they can't repeat and still get it right about what happened, at least close enough to convict people. I think that if there's one thing that's serious as an outcome of an investigation, is that someone will die because of that outcome. Wouldn't you say? Or can you name something that's even worse?
Now I'm not sure where you're trying to go anymore. Like you keep trying to drive me towards repeatability. Okay, I get that.
No, repeatability isn't necessary. That's what I'm getting at.
According to your definition of knowledge, it is necessary. According to what you're telling me, you have to be able to repeat these circumstances or put the pieces together in a working fashion. You have to repeat the event in order to prove the event.
Yes, and what I'm getting at is that you don't actually have to repeat the exact event. There's in the US, there's something called the body farm, where people who left their body to science, the bodies are taken there and the bodies are stored in different ways we know that bodies have been left by killers. So what they're doing now is recreating certain circumstances to see and try to find out what they can from that by recreating it. It's not recreating the exact murder on the exact spot it happened or the exact spot where the body was hidden. It's recreating an environment and seeing what happens to the body and gathering data so that if a body is found, we can use that data to determine what happened. For instance, how long has a body, when it comes to in the lungs, has the body been laying in that spot, or was the body killed there, or was it brought?
Okay, and you get a bunch of other information. Okay, yes. Let's say you move, and you're moving into an apartment somewhere, and you hear that a body was found in your apartment at some point in the past.
Yes.
How would you know that?
At that point you wouldn't. You hear it. It's hearsay.
So what you're saying is we cannot know anything about the past. It's all hearsay.
No, no.
Well, then
If you tell
explain.
if you tell me that a body was found,
Right.
there are a couple of options. One, which I would probably go to the last, is that you're just lying because maybe you want to get that apartment and you want me to reject it so you can move in.
Okay.
There's number two. There's number two. It actually happened. There's number three. Uh, you Someone told you a body was found there who was lying, and you trusted the person. So now you're repeating a lie without knowing that it's a lie.
But
Then
you,
there's
Peter,
then
how
there's
would in
then
you in
then
this
then there,
scenario, how
then
would
there's
you find out that there was or was not a body in that apartment?
I wasn't finished. There's number three. You could make a mistake. You could have heard about something and mistakenly taking my apartment and thinking that's the apartment where the body was found, when it was actually one floor below or one floor above. So there are several options. So if you tell me that a body was found in my apartment, I take that for what it is. If I want to find out, I can go and find the records of murders in my city and see if there was a murder or if there was an accidental death or an whatever, and the body was found in my apartment. I can go back to the records.
Okay, we have records and we look at them, and how do we trust those records?
Because they're cross-referenced. If I find a record of a body found in my apartment, there most likely will be a police record of that find, and there could be an autopsy record of that find. There could be that the body that was found was identified, and I could find out the name, and I could see if there are relatives still alive who could tell me, yes, my brother or my sister or whatever was found dead in that apartment. So we have several ways to check it. We're not going only by the records.
Okay, so we're not going only by the records. What do you mean? You
If
name the
I
records. What else?
if I have
Is there
one
something
record,
else?
let's say I have
Okay, so you
let's say someone wrote his memoirs and he noted in that apartment a body was found. Well, that's great. That tells me nothing, because he could be telling the truth, he could be lying, he could be mistaken. Two, I have no way of checking if that's even close to the truth. So I wouldn't go by that record.
okay, now Peter, you are jumping straight from.
No, I'm just answering your question.
I know, but the way you know things has been. It sounds like it was crafted specifically so you don't have to accept the Bible, which is not what I'm asking you to do.
I think you expected different answers, so you could at least get me to accept the Bible, and I'm giving you the wrong answers. So
I don't care about the.
you brought up the Bible this time. I didn't do it.
No, you definitely brought up the Bible first.
Right?
I'm just
No, now. I mean now in this part of the talk.
by the way.
Earlier I used it as an example. Now I didn't use it as an example, and I did on purpose didn't use it as an example.
Yes, but everything you've been saying has been crafted in such a way that you can say, I don't have to believe the Bible. And that's
What?
not even where I'm trying to take you right now.
Okay. Now we have two options.
Do we?
Yes, you say it has been crafted. That means that I set my answers up with the intent to reject the Bible, which
It
I
certainly
didn't.
sounds like it.
Which
I mean,
which I didn't.
in our
Let
example
me
of me.
finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
Which which I didn't. I gave you honest answers. If you want to accuse me of something I didn't do, that's fine. But then afterwards, I want you to apologize because that's not what I did.
Okay, but I'm going to show you that that's exactly what you did. When I
No, that's not what I did, because it wasn't my intention to reject the Bible. It was my intention to answer your questions
oh,
honestly.
and I believe that you were trying to answer my questions honestly, but I'm showing you, but I want to show you that there is something in your answers that that should tell us something about the way you're approaching this. When I ask, uh, in the example where you're trying to move into an apartment, and suppose I tell you that there was a body in your apartment, the first thing you did was to find every reason to discredit me.
No, I didn't discredit you. What I said is, it's
In
for
the
me, for
hypothetical
no,
scenario.
no, 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 no. Now let me finish. What I said was, for me, that wasn't enough to accept the fact that a body was found, because I don't have enough data to accept that fact.
Good, good, and
Even
that's where I was trying to take you.
even if I not had known you all my life, even if I knew that I could trust you 100%, then it still isn't enough for me to accept that a body was found, because I would want to know the facts and not something someone tells me, because that's nothing more than hearsay, and I don't do hearsay when it comes uh, to get my facts straight. And
But what
that's
is
not an insult. That's not an insult to you, but
good? Good, fine.
that's
That's
how I get my facts.
okay. But what is a record then, if not hearsay?
A record is something that can be checked.
How would you check a record?
I just told you. If there's a record
How is
of a,
that?
if there's a record of a body being found, there's most likely a record of the police finding the body, or at least being informed that a body is found, and the police came in to see what happened. There has been an investigation for which there would be a record. They might have found the identity of the person that was found. They might have relatives still alive that I can check. There's a birth certificate of the one. There's a death certificate of the one that was found. It's not just one record, and
Good.
it's
But
not.
records upon records upon records, yes?
And the most important part in this is something that you're overlooking. It's different sources. It's not just one source.
Good. This is exactly where I'm trying to take you.
Okay.
Okay, so so we skipped over quite a bit in our epistemology, but how do we check things that we can't observe anymore? We look for records. We look for people's word, and not just one person's word, multiple.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
But that's exactly what you were saying.
No, that's exactly the opposite of what I was saying.
Well, then you have been contradicting yourself this whole time. And I'll show you how in a second.
A police investigation is not someone's word. It's a collection of data.
Yes, it is. It's the word of the police.
No, it's a collection of data that the police collected at the crime scene. And it has no bearing at all. Who found it? It has no bearing at all. It has no bearing at all who wrote it down. It's the data that counts, not the person involved in collecting the data or writing about it. And suppose you found it, the data would be important, not the fact that you found it.
Okay, you mentioned a little bit ago Harry Potter.
If a body was found and you found a bloody knife where they later found the
Let's take
DNA
me
of
back
the
out of this
deceased,
scenario.
it wouldn't be important that you found it. The knife would be important. The DNA found on the knife would be important. You wouldn't be important at all. No bearing on the murder. You just found a set of data.
Assuming there was a murder, but okay.
I'm just giving you an
I know, I know,
example
I know. I just
to
yeah,
to
right. You're right.
explain to you that you are not even relevant in this case, even if you found some of the data. So it's not someone's word or someone's findings. It is the findings, data that
But
counts.
it is that someone's word is involved. That's the
No, it
only way
isn't.
you know about the findings.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't, because the findings are demonstrable, testable.
Except at this time in our scenario, where I say that I found a bloody knife and a body in your apartment, and you say
Then
that my word isn't good enough,
no,
then you
because
go and check.
no,
Right.
your word isn't
Okay.
good enough, because you can say that even when there was no body and even when there was no knife. What counts at this moment is the actual body and the actual knife. I'm not going by
Except
your
that
word.
except that the body is long gone and the knife is in evidence somewhere,
Yes.
and you can't check those. You say that you go to the record.
Why can't I check those?
They don't just let anyone see those.
No,
But even
they
then,
don't.
even you yourself said
But
that
I
you're not
could
going
I
and looking
could
for the knife or for the body. You went
if
for the
if I
record.
if I if I have sufficient reason, I could subpoena that the knife was checked again by different people. So I still would have data that could be checked. The
And we,
fact that not everyone can do this just on a whim is not important. But if I bring something to the table that could change the outcome of the verdict of the person that was found,
you're going
I
way
could I
outside the
could I
scope
could
of.
no, I'm not. I'm what I'm trying to do is tell you. You try to. You keep trying to make it important. Who found what, and that's not.
Which is exactly what I'm trying to show you
Care who
is
found it,
very
and
important.
the scientific method doesn't care who finds it.
But the scientific.
All
So
all
you
the scientific method uses is data, and the data is there, irrelevant of who found it, irrelevant of who is keeping it at the moment. It's something that's part that stands on itself and has nothing to do with people involved in finding it.
but it is involved with people finding it.
No, it isn't.
Let me put it to you this way.
And you can and you keep trying to find examples,
Now I'm going to use
but you're
your own
not going to
example.
get.
I'm going to use your own.
No, you're got. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you say for whatever reason, in the scenario, just that there was a body in your apartment, there was a bloody knife in your apartment, and supposedly, allegedly, I found it. Your apartment's been cleaned up, the body is buried, the knife is somewhere in evidence, and for whatever reason, okay, you want the knife rechecked. How are the people
Mhm.
rechecking the knife going to know that the knife was found in your apartment?
Because if the knife is in
Assuming it
storage,
was ever in your apartment.
if the knife is in storage, There will be it will be documented where it was found, when it was found, in what circumstances it was found, what was found on the knife, if there were
Exactly. It's
fingerprints.
more people's word. That they found something true is, yes, also
No,
very important. But
no, no, no.
Peter, if you can't trust
You can,
people's word on anything, then you can't trust anything.
I'm not trusting people's word. I'm trusting uh, a tool they used to find out the data. And that tool is the scientific method. I don't even care about the name that's on top of the document that lists what has been found, because uh, the name that's on the document is probably the one in charge at the lab where the knife was checked, and the knife wasn't checked by the one in charge, but probably by the people who worked there, and not just one, but several people. And it wasn't checked just once, but several times to rule out mistakes. And
But
those
how does,
and those investigations will have been documented. So it's not only the document.
yes, by
It's
people. You are taking, this is what I'm really driving at, the term that I'm trying to drive you towards. You are taking,
why would the people document it, you think?
no, but I'm interested to
No,
see where you're
no.
trying to take that.
I'm asking you a simple question. Why would you think that someone in a lab doing a test is documenting what they're doing and what they're finding?
Because they're trying to, well, in my terms, I would just say they're trying to find the truth. I mean,
Yes,
has
but
you might say that they're looking for knowledge. Am I right?
yes, but that's only part of it. If one person conducts a test and finds something, another person will do the exact same test and note their findings. What they're doing then is cross-reference if the findings are the same. And if there's any doubt, there might be a third test and a fourth test
And
to rule
you,
out to rule out mistakes.
and
So
you, the
what's
person,
so what's so what's important here is the test being done and the outcome of the test. The name of the person doing the test is irrelevant. The only reason why a name is put with the test is that if there should be a trial and people want to ask the specialist how the test was done, they can ask them how the test was done.
yes,
The
and
fact they can ask them how the test was done has no bearing on the results.
of course, has no bearing on the results, but it is how you, a person buying an apartment totally clean, you know nothing else about this apartment except that I told you, hey, there was a body found in there. You, how do you know that these tests were performed? How do you know that? Do you really demand at the lab that you go
by going through records of different sources that confirm what I just
yes, you go through and find multiple people's
of
word.
different sources,
Yes,
not different people, different sources. There's a distinction, right?
no, there is. Well, try to make the distinction for me. Try to distinguish between a source and a person.
Okay, a bloody knife with fingerprints and DNA is not a person. It's a source.
Of course not.
But it's not a person.
That you're counting the knife as a source.
Just to name.
And what is the record?
Just to name one example.
Okay. And give me another one in our scenario. You've been saying it this whole time. Yes.
The record is the data that is on the knife that we can still check. They can keep DNA samples.
How is that different from someone's word?
Because it's actual evidence.
Now, I told you nothing about the knife in the beginning of the scenario.
I said they can
You added the knife.
I said they can keep DNA samples. DNA samples from the body, DNA samples from the knife, DNA samples from the killer that are left on the knife.
You're assuming a killer, you're assuming a knife, you're adding all these things. I'm asking you, how would you know that there was ever a body in your apartment?
I'm giving you examples of sources that are not people or words of people.
Yes, and you're doing everything you can to get away from the fact that in actuality, in the way you live your life, you would go and ask for someone's word.
That I don't go for your word, that I go for data and not your word.
You may not take my word, you take someone else's word, but you are still taking someone's word.
Okay, how is a knife and a DNA sample someone?
We never, you tried to add the knife and the DNA sample this whole time. I just told you there was a body in there.
Okay, and
you're trying to add everything else you can.
No, so I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you that I go beyond what you tell me. I don't take you on your word.
Okay, when it's so something you take other people's word, not mine.
When it's something that important, that a body has been found, that could be possibly dangerous for me, because that body could have been a criminal who lived there. And there could be criminals, and there could be criminals still around, not knowing that the guy was killed. So now I go in that apartment, and someone can maybe has put out a contract to have that person killed, and I could be killed instead. So for me, there's a good reason to check it out.
Yes, there is.
If you
there are very good reasons to check it out.
If you had told me that in my apartment one of the walls once was bright red, I would take you for your word, because it wouldn't interest me, because it wouldn't be that significant for me to go through every means to find out whether or not that wall has been red.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. If you tell me I have a dog, I will believe you, because I actually have seen people owning dogs, so it's not that uncommon. But if you tell me I have a dog with the head of a cat, the feet of a duck, and the tail of an ox, then I'm going to need a little bit more than just your word to believe it.
Okay, and
just giving
so
just giving you an example, right?
Sure.
Not that I want to talk about dogs.
Okay. But you're still not accepting that. You still don't accept my assertion that a record is someone's word. Is that correct?
A record isn't someone's word.
Why not? Because that's what I'm still.
A record is a collection of data
that someone found and is now reporting to you.
That has no bearing on the data.
But the data is gone. You have a clean apartment.
Yes.
The body is buried. Are you going to demand that they exhume the body to believe that it was in your apartment?
No, because there will have been some of the evidence is kept. DNA of the body is kept.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a murder weapon, the murder weapon is kept. If there was DNA on the murder weapon, that DNA is kept. So you don't need the actual body. If well documented, and you have actual data, actual material, you can still test. Then you don't need the body anymore. You can
But
give
if
the body.
all you had was the record, would you really demand all that other evidence?
I just told you, you don't only have the record. There's still data. There's still a knife. There's still DNA. You don't only have a record. And what's important is that the records you have come from different sources. That's what I explained. And that's something you keep skipping.
No, it's not something I keep skipping. It's something I continuously drive you to. All I'm trying to bring you back to is the point that a record is someone's word.
No, it isn't.
Okay, would you say it's a verifiable?
Someone's word is someone's word, and a record has to be backed up with evidence. So you need a little bit more than someone's word.
Would you so if you have two sources, two records, you've got the let's say the coroner's report and the police report.
Yes, now you have two sets of data that you can cross-reference and see if that actually leads to the fact that there was a body found in my apartment.
Okay, so what is the difference between
we can add a third source, a very unreliable source, which would be a newspaper that about a body being found.
Okay, let's leave the newspaper out of it.
That's the most reliable source, but it still will confirm the other two.
Okay.
And now we can go on and see and try if we can find the person who actually found the body. Now we have a fourth source.
Okay.
A very unreliable source, because we already know that eyewitness testimony is the worst.
Fine, whatever. But
we'll have a fourth source that could actually confirm the other sources. Maybe not everything, a bigger image, and we would get more evidence for the fact that there actually was a body found. We can go to a grave. We can go to a grave with a name on it. The name is mentioned in the police report and in the coroner's report. Then we have a fifth. Then we have a fifth source.
So what? So we have three terms now. The term that I keep using, that you keep rejecting, which is fine. Someone's word. Okay, we have a word, and the two words that you keep using are record and source. Define these for me as distinct from word. What is it that makes them different?
I didn't use records.
Okay. So maybe that's my word then? Okay, fine.
I said data. And the data is what makes up the record. And that's testable. That's demonstrable. And data can be obtained by different sources.
Okay, see now okay, so you're using the word source where I'm using record and word. What makes the source distinct from a record or from someone's word?
I'll try to make this clear.
I'm just asking you to clarify. That's all.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll try to make it clear why the word of someone is useless. We have several cases where people have been convicted, witness testimony, where decades later new evidence
comes. That's not what I'm asking for.
I want to finish my sentence. where decades later we find new data that proves that the person who was convicted is actually, who is, can be proven to not have committed the crime. So the word of someone is useless unless backed up by further data.
Okay, so and this is what I'm trying to drive at. Just a definition of source. It is someone's word backed up by data. Is that correct? Or someone's record of the data?
That's 100% incorrect.
Then
And that means that
clarify
you
this for
haven't
me.
been listening. You haven't been listening to me what I said. A source is not important. What's important is data. And data can be found and confirmed by different sources. It still boils down to the data you have. And the fact that different sources back up the same fact with different data, that's when you can at least determine that you have a good case. So the source isn't important. It's the data from that source that's important.
Okay, so
The word isn't important. It's the data from that word that's important. If all you have is the word, then you've got nothing.
okay, now you say that, but then I
And
think
I can
record is
demonstrate,
someone's
and
word.
I can demonstrate it. I have the word of J.K. Rowling that Harry Potter exists. Now you try and explain me how Harry Potter exists and where he is. Go ahead. And you can visit J.K. Rowling for all I care. And you can visit England. You can actually go to London, and you can go to King's Cross Station. You can have your picture taken with platform 9 3/4. You can actually
Okay.
do that. You can actually do that now.
But who's walked through that wall and gone to Hogwarts?
And now you tell me that
That's
if
what
you
I would
do
look
that,
for.
and now you tell me that if you do that, how have you proven that Harry Potter exists?
By walking through the wall and going to Hogwarts? Or by finding people who say that they have gone through that wall and gone to Hogwarts?
So if I said
By finding other
so wait a minute. So
by
if I
finding other
tell
people who have known Harry Potter?
if I tell you now that I've walked through that wall and gone to Hogwarts, do you believe me?
Okay, it's you, and then anyone
Because
else?
it's me, it's worthless. I'm telling you now, I walked through the wall and
I'm
went to
using I can
Hogwarts.
use your epistemology now,
No,
where yeah, if it's just you,
I'm testing your method. You just said I can talk to people who told me they went to Hogwarts. Now, okay, so now you have someone who told you they went to Hogwarts. So,
Mhm.
does now Hogwarts exist? Does Harry Potter now exist because I told you that I went there?
Are you reliable? You telling me the truth?
I don't know. That's for you to find out.
Okay, well, I'm going to go look for other people. And also, if I have access to Station 9, what, King's
If you
Cross,
go
9 and 3
if you go to
quarters?
other if you go to other people, how would you get to whether or not I'm reliable or not?
Well, one thing I can do is see if you're a habitual liar.
What if you go to a friend of mine who will actually back up my story just to fool you? Now you have a corroborating word from someone else that I'm telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
and I have a lot of friends.
And if it's just you and your,
I could simply round up, I think, 500 people who would actually testify to you that I went to Hogwarts. Now, does that have any bearing on the fact whether or not I went to Hogwarts? Yes or no?
well, we're already assuming that Hogwarts doesn't exist. So what you're
No,
proving is
no,
that
no,
you
no.
can make.
That's not what I asked. I said I can round up at least 500 people who will be willing to tell you that I went to Hogwarts. Does the testimony of those 500 people have any bearing on whether or not I went to Hogwarts? Yes or no?
Well, it most definitely.
It's a
I
simple
suppose
yes or
not.
no question.
I suppose not.
See?
But
So the
what you're
word isn't
showing
enough.
is.
So now you're telling you the word isn't enough, right?
But that's only because we're already assuming that Hogwarts does not exist.
We're
We're
assuming
assuming that you are being deliberately dishonest in your word.
I'm assuming nothing. You are trying to find something out. Are you assuming that I'm a liar before you asked if I went to Hogwarts, yes or no?
No, but that would
Okay,
only be the case if I've never heard of Hogwarts before.
Are you assuming that Hogwarts doesn't exist before you ask me if I went there, yes or no? Or are
I'm
you
only making this assumption because
honestly trying to find out if Hogwarts exists and if I went there?
I would be if we're talking about the Hogwarts from Harry Potter.
Okay.
And if I find 500 people who have said that they've actually been to the Hogwarts from Harry Potter, that's not something I can discard.
No. Maybe not. I would, because it gets me nowhere. Do you know how many people were abducted by aliens in the world?
No, I don't.
Thousands. And a lot of them are still alive. You can go talk to them. So does that mean aliens exist and abduct people?
I don't know.
Well,
I want to find out how credible these people are.
I'm going with no, because no one has presented any data that they were actually abducted by aliens. All we have is stories. No one went to a spaceship and picked up a screwdriver and took it home, or a pen, or a glass. Or complimentary sugar in a paper container. No one has done that. I wonder why.
Well, if the aliens are trying to remain a secret, it's very obvious why.
And you think in the thousands of people that got abducted, no one has ever had the chance to pick something up and put it in their pocket before they were brought back to Earth? I highly doubt that.
So if someone brought you a screwdriver and said this came from an alien craft, you would believe that?
I wouldn't believe them, no.
Even if they picked up an alien screwdriver?
How am I to know if it's an alien screwdriver?
Well, then the data doesn't matter.
Oh, yes, the data matters.
But if someone shows you an alien screwdriver, you don't care about that.
Well, at the moment in the background, I have, because I plan to talk to him again, I have Kent Hovind. He is showing me a hammer that has been found. It's called the London artifact. I don't know if you know about it. It's a hammer that has been found encased in stone. The stone presumably is dated millions of years old, which to Hovind is clear evidence that the pre-flood civilization were intelligent and had hammers. The hammer supposedly has been checked and is made of an alloy that we cannot produce at this time. Funny enough, who checked it aren't made public, and the hammer cannot be checked by anyone else because the hammer is now in possession of a man named Carl Baugh, and he, at this point in time, has never had any findings of him checked by any scientist. He claims he has, but he's not sharing the names of the scientists who tested it for him. So what
and
we have
now suddenly
that
you
would
want to
be
connect this to people.
no.
Now
What I'm
suddenly, when
connecting,
there's an artifact involved, you want to ask for the right people.
No.
That's
What
exactly what you're telling me.
No. This as an example, you giving me an alien screwdriver.
And even in your example, you are looking for other people's word.
I won't believe you, and I won't take your word until scientists test the screwdriver and find out that it is something that actually did not come from this world.
You'll take the scientist's word.
No,
That's exactly what you just said.
No. You can try and twist it like that. How's the scientist
I'm twisting
going?
Nothing. That's exactly what you just said.
Simple question. What method will the scientist use to determine what the material is made of?
What makes you think they would find something other than plastic or metal?
What method will the scientist use to test your screwdriver to find out?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I imagine they would look for some kind of radiation. There's supposed to be higher radiation levels in space. Or if it turns out to be very low.
What method would he use?
Oh, you're looking for scientific method.
Right.
Okay.
No word, a method.
But you will trust
a method that gets us testable data. Not a word, not a person, a method with testable, demonstrable data.
But you won't do the testing or the demonstrating yourself.
And if the scientist finds out that the screwdriver you gave me is just an ordinary screwdriver that is bought in the corner hardware store, and the scientist can prove that by using the scientific method, then it's safe for me to say that you are a liar and you just handed me a screwdriver from the corner hardware store and told me that it was an alien screwdriver. So that's how we get to fact. Not your word, not the scientist's word, the data that confirms it.
But suppose I handed you a real alien screwdriver.
Then the scientist will find out that it's made of material that we don't have available on Earth.
You assume this, but okay.
I don't assume this. I say that if you hand me an alien screwdriver, odds are high.
There will be something different about it that a scientist can detect.
Odds are high that if it comes from a different planet, it's made up from different materials using different processes than we have here on Earth. And we have a scientific method that can find out it is made with processes we have on Earth and materials we have on Earth. If there's something in the material that we don't have on Earth, then it's safe to say that it's alien in origin, because there's a material that we don't have on Earth.
But
And that
you
has
would
nothing,
be
and that
able.
has nothing, and that has nothing to do with you handing me the screwdriver. It has nothing to do with the scientist doing the research. It has to
But it
do with
has
the
everything
data.
to do with the
It
scientists doing the
has,
research. Those
it
are the
has,
people you would trust.
it has to do with the demonstrable data. The scientist is not important, because I could give that same screwdriver to a second scientist, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and
Right,
they
and
would
you
all
will.
come up, and they would all come up with the same data. And I don't care who the scientist is. I don't care how long he has been doing the work he does. I don't care where he had his education. I don't care who his teachers were. I don't care how big his IQ is. I don't care. What I care is about the findings that are demonstrable, findings we get from the scientific method. No person involved, no testimony involved, not even you handing me the screwdriver. The only thing where you would be important is telling me where you found the screwdriver. And now we're back to something we can't test, because the spaceship probably won't be around long enough. We can't go there.
Right.
So for that, we'll have to take your word, but we have no way of testing. They could have hypnotized you and taken you to something completely different, and you would come back to Earth telling your story, being 100% honest, 100% wrong. So
But you're willing to go to other people
so that's why
and
your
have
word.
them do the method.
I'm not going by people, I'm going by data, and that is the only thing we can. There's nothing else we have.
Peter, you are getting your data from people. Yes, they are looking at a screwdriver, but they are drawing data from it. And then you have to ask these people.
I'm getting my data from a method, and the only method we currently have to determine reality. If you're aware of a second method that we have to determine reality, tell me. Very curious. And you would get a Nobel Prize in the process.
Historical method, and no, I wouldn't get a Nobel Prize because they already have those.
Historical
Or at least
method
I
is part of
imagine
the
they already
scientific.
have those.
Historical method is just a part of the scientific method. It's nothing new.
Okay. Then that's what I suppose that's what I'm looking for. It's just that you are very, very focused on the data, that you disregard the people associated with it, correct?
No, incorrect. It's
How much
not
time
me.
does my battery have?
It's not me, because I'm not important. It's the scientific. It's the scientific method relying on that. It's not me. I rely on the scientific method just as much as you do.
Okay, so
You're sitting in a car right now.
This was my first.
You're sitting in a car right
question.
now. Am I correct?
What's that?
You're sitting in a car right now. Okay.
Sure.
Do you think that car came into being by the scientific method?
I think it came into being by engineering.
And what's engineering?
By metallurgy. I mean,
what's engineering?
That?
What's engineering?
Not an engineer, but
isn't an engineer using the scientific method?
No, he's using metallurgy. He uses the scientific method.
And metallurgy isn't part of the scientific method?
No, it's not. Scientific method is something gained
It's
from...
not?
Scientific method, if I'm correct, is gaining knowledge from the world. Metallurgy is putting some bits of that information into use. I mean, that's just crude definition.
So it's a subset of the scientific method, right?
Okay, you are expanding the definition of scientific method to encompass absolutely everything.
Absolutely everything we know about reality, yes. Name me one thing that is real that we haven't used the scientific method for to determine that it's real. Just one thing.
Julius Caesar.
What?
He's not repeatable, yet we know he existed.
How do we know this?
By checking multiple sources.
So now we're using the scientific method.
I'm taking people's word, which is the very thing that you're trying to get as far away from as you can.
No. You're using the scientific method.
No, I'm not. I did not go and see Julius Caesar. That would be the scientific method.
No, it wouldn't.
You're expanding the terms for the scientific method to apply to things that are not the scientific method.
I just spent over half an hour that a body being found and the research being done can conclude that there was a murder. No one will ever be able to see the murder happen. No one. But the scientific method can tell us what happened. The same goes for Julius Caesar. He's dead, he's gone, his body's gone. But we have a scientific method to determine whether or not he existed. And that's all we have. So let's have another thing that we can determine without using the scientific method.
Let's see, you've already expanded your definition of scientific method to encompass absolutely everything.
That's the second time you say this, and that's the second time I will deny it, because that's not what I said. Do you care to repeat what I actually said? I said the scientific method is the one and only tool we have to determine reality. If you are aware of another method, better method, then I would be open for it.
But see, you've already expanded scientific method to encompass historical method.
If you can actually present a second method, make sure you get the publicity, 100% confident that next year you're walking away with a Nobel Prize and $1 million in cash.
Go to Wikipedia, look up historical method.
That's part of the scientific. That's part of the scientific method. You can go to subsets, but it'll take you nowhere.
No, these are not subsets of scientific method.
They are.
These are subsets of epistemology. That is the school of how we know things.
They are part of the scientific method.
No, this is epistemology.
Well, you can tell me no. You can tell me no, but what you tell me is unimportant, because we can find out and check it, and it's part of the scientific method, because there are a lot of different methods that make up the scientific method.
What you are describing is not the scientific method alone. It's all epistemology.
No.
If you want to trust scientific method alone,
you have to
expand your definition of scientific method to know other things. Things that are not determined by scientific method.
when you step out of your car and I point you to the right front tire, and you look at the right front tire, that right front tire is not your car. It's part of your car.
Yes.
It's made of rubber and metal, and other parts of your car are not even made of rubber and metal.
Mm-hmm.
They're not made using the same process. They're not made using the same people. They're not made using the same knowledge, and they're still part of your car. So the historical method is part of the scientific method. It's a subset.
This is what I'm saying.
That doesn't mean that the historical method is the only method we have in science. We have different methods, but they still all fall under the scientific method. And what I asked you is, can you name me one thing that we know is real and hasn't been determined by the scientific method? And you can't.
Because you've already expanded the scientific method to include things that are not scientific method. You are describing epistemology, not science.
Okay, demonstrate to me how epistemology is not science.
Because it's philosophy.
Is it a way to find out something?
Yes.
Is it a way to find out something that's real?
Yes.
Then it's part of the scientific method. It is not the scientific method. It is a part of the scientific method.
At the beginning of this conversation, I first asked you, how do we know things? And you jumped straight to, but the very first question I asked you, maybe not the very first, but I asked you, how do we know that the world is even real?
Yes.
And you said we can't.
No, because we don't have
I say
a
we
method.
can, and this is epistemology.
We don't have a method to check whether or not we're in the matrix, yes or no. And it's useless to have a method like that, because even if we are in the matrix right now, we still have to deal with what we perceive as reality. So the fact that we could know that we're just a piece of software running in a computer has no bearing on the fact whether or not our reality is in fact our own reality.
And this would be the school of epistemology. How do I know that this reality is real? This would be like one of the first steps of epistemology, is saying, how do I know that this world around me is real? And there is a good answer to your question. Maybe something you will accept is that this is something that falls outside the scientific method, but which we know is real.
I have no clue where you're getting at. Not at all.
What I'm getting at is that the scientific method does not encompass everything.
I never claimed it does.
Yes, you did. You said everything that is real.
No, I didn't. You want to say it? You don't want to have me say it? I think it for the 6th or the 7th time now.
Go ahead, say it again.
The scientific method is the only method we have to determine whether or not something conforms to reality.
And there's the word real right there in reality. And that's not just scientific method, that's epistemology.
In the word scientific method, there's the word meth. Are we talking about drugs now?
No, because that word comes from somewhere else. But reality and the word
If I
real
say
are
if I
etymologically related.
if I say
They're the same.
reality, if I say reality, does it matter that part of the word reality is another word with a completely different meaning, which is real?
If it was a completely different meaning, see,
It
again,
is?
this isn't scientific method. This is etymology. This is the study of words, which is not the scientific method.
No, it is. And words don't have meanings, words have usages.
And by the way, if you were to employ what you call the scientific method, you would find that real and reality have the same word. It's changed the
Are
form.
are are two completely different things.
A noun and an adjective?
They're
Because
two
that's what
completely
they are.
different things. They're two completely different things.
The word real and the word
If I were
reality.
if I were if I were to give you meth, I think in a couple of minutes experience a completely different reality than we actually have, but it still be very real to you. So real and
It would
reality,
be an experience.
real and reality are completely different things. And that's how I explain that in just a simple example.
But now you've just, which is complete.
What you experience as real is not necessarily reality.
What I
And the
experience as
simplest and
real
the
is not
simple
necessarily real. It would be my experience, whether it is real or not, and therefore a part of reality.
your
Is different.
experience would be real. It just wouldn't be reality.
And see, here we're just doing straight philosophy.
No,
We're playing word
try.
games, and this is the school of
Yes,
epistemology, not
and
the
the one
scientific method.
the one playing word games is you, because when I say the word reality, you pick out the word real. Well, great. I use the word scientific method, so I'll pick out meth. And where it leads us in is in discussing nonsense
Oh
that has nothing to do with the sentence I actually said, which has nothing to do with what I actually meant with by saying that sentence.
Okay, Peter, I have less than 10 minutes left. Do you have something that we can conclude on?
Well, the fact that at least we have done a fairly good demonstration about the fact that all we have to determine reality is the scientific method, and there's nothing else.
That no, this is epistemology. If you
Yes,
want to try to expand the scientific
which is a part of the scientific method, just like your tire is a part of your car, but your tire isn't a car.
No. Scientific method is the tire. Epistemology is the car. And this is another point that I've been trying to explain to you.
Well, I have to disagree.
From the very beginning.
I have to disagree then, because I think it's the other way around. But I'd be happy to see you explain how epistemology gets us, let's say, a computer.
And I'd be very interested in hearing how you.
No, don't deflect.
Maybe I would.
You said epistemology. You said that the scientific method was a part of epistemology. Okay, so now you can everything epistemology offers and explain to me how we can get to a computer.
That would be science.
Epistemology.
That would be technology. That would be mechanics. That would be. That would be physics.
Science.
I mean, yes, correct.
Yes, so not epistemology, right?
That is also epistemology.
Epistemology is just asking questions. It's not doing anything. It's not experimenting. It's not. It is a method to collect data, but it's not in any way a method to construct anything.
The scientific method doesn't construct anything either. The scientific method only extracts
So your car
data.
doesn't. So your car doesn't exist.
Extracts data from the world.
So your car doesn't exist. You think?
I'm saying it's not the scientific method that brought it into being. It's the scientific method that gathered the information, the data, whatever, about the materials and how to put them together to make a car. But no, the scientific method is not what made the car.
So the scientific method is used to make a car, but it's not what is making the car.
Not even. The scientific method figures out how to do things.
Did you hear yourself now?
No, these are different things.
What method is used to construct a car?
Mechanics. Construction.
That's it?
Construction uses science. Construction is not itself science.
Construction uses science. You said that, right?
Construction uses information.
No, that's not what you said.
It is not itself.
Construction uses science. That's what you said,
yeah,
right?
because this is a new part of the conversation. I didn't think we'd actually. This.
Here's the thing: your battery is low.
Yeah.
Why don't you find out a different way to determine reality, and we'll have another talk where you can explain that method that is not the scientific method or part of the scientific method that actually provided us with information about something being real. And you can
all I'm going to have to do...
You can take all the time you need, because there isn't any. You'd be famous.
All I have to do is show you that the scientific method itself is much smaller than what you believe it to be.
No, it's not. And it doesn't, I don't care if it's smaller or not, because the scientific method is something that is still growing. We find new ways. We find new things to test. We find new methods to test. So the scientific method is something that has been growing from the very first moment and still is. And there's nothing we have that can actually give us information whether or not something is real or not. Nothing.
Okay,
and
here's what I'm going to do, Peter. Here's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm just going to swap my word for epistemology with your word for scientific method. Okay, since that's what it is to you. I say people's word, you say sources. Fine, I'll swap those words.
It's not about swapping words.
Actually, yes, it is, because
if you swap words, sentences get completely different meanings.
You would think so, but I say we take people's word, and this leads us to epistemology. You say you take sources, and it leads you to scientific method. We said the same thing. Our meanings were the same. We're using the different words.
I know so because I can demonstrate it to you with one single sentence. What color is your car?
Green.
You have a blue car. Am I describing your car?
If
you have a
this
green,
is the exact problem.
No. You have a green car. am I describing your car now? I just changed
Because
one
we've
word.
swapped the meanings.
I swapped one word.
But if you call a color, but if I call a color green and you call a color blue,
Yes, one of us is an idiot because we actually know what green and blue and red are. He dropped off. That's a pity. Okay. I'll hope Chris will get back. I'll finish this with a short word. I still have to compliment Chris because he at least is determined, and I still think that Chris is honest in everything he says. And I'll hope that we can continue this at a later stage. For the people that have tuned in and listened, thank you very much. And I hope at least it was informative, and I hope I was correct. So there are a couple of people I want to ask to listen to this. One of this is my good friend Tony at Hack&Slash1 on Twitter. And the other one is Jackson Wheat. He'll have a little less time to spend on it, I think, because he only has to listen to the start of the conversation. And I want to ask these people if what I said was correct, and if it wasn't, if they would please correct me, so that next time when Chris gets back, I can at least Chris for saying something that wasn't correct, and um, tell him what mistakes I made, and how things really are. So thanks for listening for now, and see you next time. In the meantime, maybe subscribe here on YouTube and follow me on Twitter at GonnaGoForIt, and let's meet there. If you want to talk to me, just contact me on Twitter, or on the email address that's in my bio, or it's here on my YouTube channel as well, and we can set up a talk. Listening, and see you next time. Bye bye.